Hi, Dreckie here, and today I'm reviewing the Kaideng K70C Quadcopter. I bought this thing for about $60 off of GearBest, so I wasn't expecting the best quality ever. And after flying it a couple times, I was almost ready to write it off as a piece of garbage. But it took me a couple more flights to realize that a lot of the issues I was having with the quadcopter were due to user error and poor user manual translation, as opposed to actually being an issue with the quadcopter itself. So let's look at the body first. To start, this thing is made entirely of plastic save for the screws and a couple fasteners. It feels fairly cheap and there's a little bit of flex to everything. That being said, I did have a crash with it, and the only thing that really broke on the crash was this little plastic bit here and the camera mount. So this is actually not the one that was included with the quadcopter. The other thing that I noticed that's kind of concerning is that when I press on the back here, it turns on. And unfortunately, I believe that's one of the reasons for the crash that I had with it. You'll see that video in a couple moments. After those two little issues though, once I learned how to properly fly the quadcopter, it actually flew alright. It has a decent amount of power, it turns fairly quickly, and it goes pretty high. Although I guess that's what you'd expect out of one that's based off of a Syma. So let's take a look at the remote really quick. As you can see, it too is all plastic and there's a bunch of buttons all over it. The funny thing is that a couple of these buttons are actually fake and don't do anything. That really confused me when I was first starting out because there is almost no documentation on this thing, as I was saying. The user manuals are actually quite poor. So let's take a look at some actual flying footage now. To start, I took the quadcopter out to the park near my house and just flew it around a little bit to learn how to try and control it. Like I said, the documentation of the quadcopter was not very well done, so my first couple flights were just kind of me going up and down and then chasing the quadcopter as it inevitably flew away from me. But once I started to learn how to control the forwards and backwards movement, the left and the right movement, it actually became pretty clear that this quadcopter is fairly decent to fly. And of course, with each subsequent flight it got easier to fly, other than this one crash. Whether this was because the power suddenly turned off in mid-flight due to the power button issue I mentioned earlier, or because it lost battery power, or because it just decided it didn't want to fly anymore, I have no idea, but it did cause some damage. It may have also fallen out of the sky because of the launch landing procedure. To launch the quadcopter, you press the button and then you hold up and the thing will fly, of course. But to land it is not documented, so I couldn't figure out whether you have to press the button first and then try and land it, or land it and then press the button. So for the first couple times when I was flying this quadcopter, it would still be running on the ground and I'd have to jump over to it and then press the power button on the top myself to turn it off. I still haven't exactly figured it out yet, but it seems to me that if you press the launch landing button and then hold down once it's on the ground enough, it will turn itself off. Once I started to get the hang of flying though, everything got pretty cool, and despite having a broken camera mount, I was able to get some pretty neat footage. I can't wait to take this thing to other places that are not just my park in my backyard. The camera that's included with this quadcopter is garbage anyways. It's only 720p and the color doesn't look very good. I didn't get to test it myself, but honestly, I'm not too much of a loss. I was planning on using my Get 2 Pro initially with the mount that was supplied, which it did fit. However, due to the fact that the mount is broken now, I just stuck on the Onpa X2000 and that's what this footage is from. Despite having these issues, I'm glad I did purchase this quadcopter as it's been quite the experience in terms of learning how to solder, assembling electronics, and even just learning how to fly. I'm glad that I got a fully manual quadcopter first off instead of jumping straight into something like a DJI, because now I'll have a better understanding of how to actually operate the quadcopter instead of relying on all the sensors. That being said, this is not an easy quadcopter to operate, and I wouldn't recommend it exactly for beginners, unless you're like me and you just sort of want to dive headfirst into something. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave them below as usual. Like, share, subscribe, that sort of thing. I also have social media and I love chatting text, so if you want to hit me up on Twitter, the link is below.
And let's try and bring it down for a landing. There we go. Not bad.